Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest who's joining us right now. And I want to just preview, for those of you who watch the show, Mike Davis, obviously a legend. Mike Davis is somebody who runs the Article 3 project, but that, quite frankly, doesn't do his pedigree enough justice. Mike Davis is somebody who's personally worked for Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, personally worked for Chuck Grassley on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, who was in charge of all judicial nominations, judges, and all of these federal prosecutions. Like, Mike Davis is somebody who knows the internals of this system better than anyone, and who personally shepherded, and I think could rightly be said, you wouldn't have the Trump Supreme Court granting cert in the presidential immunity. You wouldn't have the victories that we're seeing on Section 1512 C2 without Mike Davis. Mike Davis is the man who personally stood in the gap for Kavanaugh and stiffened the spines of the Republican Senate to get that man on the court. Mike Davis is a profound legal expert when it comes to cases like these, and the great Mike Davis joins the show now. You'll never get a better introduction than that, Mike. Although I will say that I'm not even sure you would be able to maintain your composure with all of your pedigree when faced with the lies of Big Fani. What do you make of this case? Can you sort of give us a little bit of a handicap of what's going to happen today?
So what should happen if there's any justice down in Georgia is this Fulton County DA, Fani Willis, should be disqualified from this case. So should her boyfriend, Nathan Wade. So should her office, the Fulton County DA office. This case should be dismissed without prejudice, and then a new prosecutor should be brought in who is not corrupted, has not perjured themselves, who has not obstructed justice, to make the independent assessment whether to refile these charges against President Trump and 18 others. I would think that any sane, non-corrupted, uncorrupted prosecutor would not do that, because it is not a crime to object to a presidential election. It is allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. Democrats objected to Republican wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016. We don't see Al Gore and John Kerry and Hillary Clinton in prison for objecting to those Republican wins. It's also allowed by the First Amendment to object to a presidential election. It's only a crime to object to a presidential election in third world Marxist hellholes like China and Russia and North Korea and Washington, D.C. and Atlanta, Georgia. So that's what should happen to this case. This is not about Fani Willis hooking up with her boyfriend and then hiring him. This is much bigger than that. This is, as a criminal prosecutor, you cannot have a financial stake in the criminal prosecution. That is absolutely unethical and illegal. And you have to wonder why Fani Willis brought this bizarre RICO case against Trump and 18 others. You have to wonder why her secret boyfriend, not so secret now, was being paid $250 an hour, $700,000 in counting, to bring these charges. And then Big Fani's living the big life, going to Napa, going to the Caribbean, going to Belize with her secret boyfriend, taking these illegal kickbacks from her boyfriends. Oh, but don't worry, her Black Panther father taught her as a Black Panther cub that she needs to have 6 months of cash laying around the house like a prostitute or a drug dealer. And she had cash laying around the house, and she paid back Nathan Wade with cash, thousands and thousands of dollars. There's no evidence of this whatsoever other than their perjured statements, right? And then she didn't replenish that cash, so she disobeyed her father's advice, her Black Panther father's advice. She's been a bad Black Panther cub because she didn't replenish that cash to have 6 months of cash laying around after she spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars going on these trips. She's obviously lying. She's obviously taking bribes. She's obviously taking illegal kickbacks. This is perjury, subornation of perjury, obstruction of justice. Remember, Nathan Wade lied in a sworn statement to the divorce court. That is perjury. Then Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and 8 other attorneys in the Fulton County DA's office submitted that false affidavit from the divorce case to
go to a cabin with Miss Willis.
Sorry
in response to co-defendant Mike Roman's motion to dismiss, they've lied to several courts. They need to be thrown off this case. They need to be thrown in prison.
So, Mike, I think that you're making a great point. You know that I love puns. I'm a father. I like it's too easy with Big Fani and Nathan's hot dog. It's too easy, obviously, with the stepping aside all the jokes. All right, lying to the court. Like that's kind of like plainly obvious, and all the evidence is stacked against them. They have now officially lied to the court on multiple accounts. So let's just take that charge as it stands. What should happen if you are found to be a prosecutor and you are lying to the court that you are supposed to be prosecuting in front of? You're behaving criminally in that same court. What's supposed to happen?
It's very clear what should happen and what must happen. They need to be disqualified from the case. The case needs to be dismissed for a new prosecutor to come in and decide whether to refile the charges. They need to be disbarred as lawyers, and they need to be thrown in prison.
So what would be the prison element to that? Would you say so? Now you're talking about taking bribes and embezzling federal money? That's then the crime?
It's bribery. It's taking illegal kickbacks. It's having an illegal financial stake in a criminal prosecution. It's perjury. It's subornation of perjury. It's false statements. It's obstruction of justice. There are Fulton County gift ban violations here. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, the all-star Congresswoman from Georgia, sent a criminal referral to Governor Brian Kemp, and Attorney General Chris Carr in Georgia months ago. They need to stop protecting Fani Willis because of their hatred for Trump. They need to do their job under Georgia statute and open a criminal probe on Fani Willis and Nathan Wade. They got 8 lawyers in the Fulton County DA's office, 8 prosecutors to sign, to put their names on an affidavit that Fani and Nathan knew contained perjured statements to the court.
How could you conceivably, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not some type of bright legal mind, but how in any universe could the court allow somebody to go forward who's done this inside of the same court? I mean, it doesn't seem possible, right? It seems like if you were going to handicap this, and we've been quite shocked that even MSNBC legal experts are saying they're finished here. Like there really is no path forward. Am I wrong?
No, and the question that they're clearly going to get disqualified. The office is clearly going to get disqualified. The only question is whether the judge dismisses the case without prejudice, which he should do, and allow a new prosecutor to come in, or if he allows this case to continue. Here's the problem. This case has been corrupted since before the indictment with this illegal financial stake that Fani Willis and Nathan Wade had in this case. She admitted that her relationship with him started before the indictment. That's all that matters. It was before she decided to move forward with this unprecedented RICO indictment, this very expensive case. And now we know why she brought this very expensive case, because she's taking illegal kickbacks. She's taking bribes. She has an illegal financial stake in this criminal prosecution. And if you believe that this Black Panther cub kept 6 months of cash around the house and paid back her boyfriend in cash and then didn't replenish the cash, no ATM transactions, no bank statement showing that she got more cash to keep 6 months around her house, then you're suspending all common sense.
Yes. So what happens when it gets back to the Biden White House and January 6th committee and their interaction here? So, I mean, I'm asking inside of a Trump 2.0 administration, and an actual investigation is launched to see what interaction did the White House have? Why was Nathan Wade at the White House? This guy hadn't even prosecuted a parking ticket, yet he's getting invited to go sit with the White House counsel. Fani Willis is going to the January 6th committee. A proper investigation is done and find collusion and coordination within the White House. That seems like arguably a much bigger deal than like the sex they were having inside or outside of a cabin, right?
Yeah. So Nathan Wade billed the Fulton County DA's office $250 an hour to meet with the Biden White House, including the Biden White House counsel. It had to have been before the indictment. It had to have been about this case because he billed Fulton County on this case. So he was clearly colluding with the White House about this case, this January 6th case in Georgia before the indictment. That's clear collusion. That's clear evidence. And what I would say is the Trump 47 Justice Department needs to appoint a special counsel to investigate this criminal conspiracy by Biden, his staff, and these various prosecutors, whether it's Biden special counsel Jack Smith, this Democrat Fulton County DA Fani Willis, and her boyfriend Nathan Wade, the Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, Big Tish, Tish James, the New York Attorney General. This is a criminal conspiracy by these Democrat operatives and prosecutors to take out President Trump, to violate his civil rights. And Biden has his hands on all four of these criminal prosecutions, all four of them. Not only did Nathan Wade build the Biden White House before the indictment, you had Matthew Colangelo going from the number 3 office in the Biden Justice Department to go resuscitate the zombie case against Trump in Manhattan, right? This bogus case for the non-felony of a businessman settling a nuisance claim. You had Jonathan Sue, Biden's deputy White House counsel, waiving Trump's claim of executive privilege on behalf of Joe Biden that led to the unprecedented, unnecessary, unlawful raid on the office of former president for presidential records Trump was allowed to have under the Presidential Records Act. That spun off to Jack Smith indicting Trump for records he's allowed to have, and the January 6th case. Biden's hands are on all four of these criminal indictments, these unprecedented indictments against his political enemy, Trump. This is lawfare. This is election interference. They waited 30 months to bring these charges, and now they're saying, oh, we need to rush to have these cases tried and Trump convicted, and these before these Democrat judges and prosecutors and juries before November 5th, 2024. This is obviously election interference. They're obviously violating President Trump's civil rights. They need to be held accountable for this.
So I can't let you go, Mike, without asking about the Supreme Court and granting cert in the immunity, presidential immunity this week. Obviously, salt was rolling, giant salt rocks rolling down the street through Washington, D.C. All the right people were seething and hissing and spitting venom over this. It seems like such an obvious thing for the Supreme Court to do. It seems like the role of the Supreme Court to take up a case like this. Your thoughts?
These left-wing lunatics, they're just zombies. Were they wearing their Ukraine COVID mask when they were screaming and ranting? So remember, these same zombies back in December when Jack Smith made the extraordinary request to the Supreme Court, a petition for cert before judgment. Jack Smith said this case was so important that only the Supreme Court can hear it, and that's why the Supreme Court should skip the D.C. Circuit, the federal appellate court, and hear this case. The Supreme Court said, no, go to the D.C. Circuit for it first. The Democrat operatives on the D.C. Circuit sided with Jack Smith, and now Jack Smith and all these Democrat zombies are saying the Supreme Court can't take this case, right? They're going to destroy democracy. They can't take this case. How did they say in December that this case is so important that only the Supreme Court can take it? But now the Supreme Court is blowing up the Constitution by taking this case. These people are left-wing lunatics. Look, members of Congress have immunity from criminal prosecution for their official acts. So do federal judges. Why wouldn't the president of the United States? He would need it more than anyone because he runs an entire branch of government, and the Supreme Court is going to decide that any president is immune from criminal prosecution for his official acts, not his personal acts, his official acts. They're going to remand this back to Judge Chutkan, this Obama judge on the D.C. Circuit, who will hold an evidentiary hearing and decide what actions on January 6th were personal versus presidential. One presidential is, how do you fire your attorney general unless you're the president? How do you order the D.C. National Guard to go put down a Capitol riot unless you're the president? There's going to be huge problems with Jack Smith's case. It's not going to get tried before the election, and Trump's going to win, and this case is going to go away. Boo-hoo to the Democrats.
Boo-hoo. So that does seem like it's going to just completely destroy. Like there's then no hope, and I think they've hung their hope on the wrong people. We couldn't believe it when Fani Willis took the stand, because we're gonna be going live to the judge fairly soon here, and because you're a very smart, you're very wise, Mike, and you're able to read people really well, better than anyone I've known. I've known you for a while. Can you give me your read on these antics that Fani Willis displayed? I'm sure you were watching live with the rest of us and were quite aghast, but you actually have a pedigree in this. And so what does this say to you when a prosecutor starts waving files in the air and screaming at the top of her lungs, and right after this, the judge put her in timeout?
It shows that she's an absolute buffoon. She shouldn't be in a position of power, but because she's in a Democrat hellhole called Fulton County, you can have buffoons like this win office. She's clearly lying. She's clearly obstructing justice. She's clearly taking bribes. She clearly is taking illegal kickbacks. She clearly has an illegal financial stake in a criminal prosecution. And Big Fanny's clearly going to get kicked off this case, and so is her dumb boyfriend, Nathan Wade, and the rest of her office. The only question is whether the case gets dismissed without prejudice to bring in a new prosecutor, which the judge should do if he's actually going to follow the law and follow justice, but we shall see.
There's a very special clip right here that's playing. Would you know if you went to a cabin, Mike?
Yeah,
or would you have to sweat and stare at the ceiling for 60 seconds?
You know, Ben, I don't think we've had enough controversy on this hit, so I will say this. I actually feel sorry for Nathan Wade. I don't think at $700,000 after watching Fani Willis's testimony, he was paid enough.
Okay, one final thing, just because you're the legal expert for the show, his lawyer said, "Oh dang, we have this clip for you. It's a very short clip, but when given the text messages, Terrence Bradley looks at them and literally under his voice but you can hear it. It's audible in the microphone. He goes, 'Oh dang.'" Let's put the clip up, Royce. Here it goes. We've slowed it down for effect. Okay. So what does that mean? What does that mean when your lawyer? Okay, enough. What does that mean when your lawyer sees the evidence against you and says something like that?
I think it means objection, Your Honor. We're screwed. Something like that. Look, I would say to these Democrats, if you're going to try to use your lawfare to take out a president, a former and likely future president of the United States, don't pick utter morons like Jack Smith and Tish James and Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg to do your bidding. They're stupid, right? And this whole house of cards is crumbling. This was the Democrats' dream, that they were just going to take President Trump off the ballot, bankrupt him, indict him, throw him in prison, and Biden was just going to meander into the White House again with his ice cream cone by default. Guess what? It's backfiring, and you're welcome, America, from the Article 3 project, because we helped make that happen.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, please. This is the Article 3 project, so incredibly important. Mike is the president and founder of the Article 3 project, fighting for your rights and obviously putting the systems in place to prevent complete and total tyranny inside of our legal systems, and also obviously for you and I, just the regular citizens. If they can do this to Trump, they can do it to all of us, right? And Mike's one of the very few who are standing in the gap. Mike, did I get that right?
I think so. And we joked about putting kids in cages. We're not going to put kids in cages. We're going to put Biden and Fani and Alvin Bragg and Tish James and the rest of these Democrat, Matthew Colangelo, Nathan Wade, the rest of these Democrat operatives who are running this illegal criminal conspiracy to take out a political opponent through this lawfare and election interference. There is going to be justice coming after January 20th, 2025.
Support Mike at the Article 3 project. We don't have enough time now, but I hear rumors that Mike might be appointed the acting attorney general to have a 3-week reign of terror and to do every investigation, to not sleep. And he's just going to go find the bag of Coke that Hunter Biden left at the White House, and he's just going to rip it and go and do the 3-week reign of terror. And boy, oh boy, we might be live for the whole thing. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Mike Davis. Godspeed, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I know for a fact that Mike does not do drugs and would never touch Hunter Biden's Coke left at the White House. Hunter Biden